Picture this: Barcelona in the late 1800s, a growing city buzzing with new ideas, politics, and a strong sense of identity. And right in the middle of this energy, a bookseller named Josep Maria Bocabella has a dream. He doesn't sell novels or cookbooks, his focus is on religious texts. Bocabella believed the city needed a new place of worship, a grand one, devoted to the Holy Family. So, in 1882, construction began. At first, it wasn't meant to be anything groundbreaking, just a nice Gothic revival church with spires and arches. Architect Francisco de Paula del Villar was hired to design it. His plan looked a lot like the European churches of the time. But fate had a twist in store. Villar resigned after disagreements about money and design. And into the picture stepped a young, eccentric architect named Antoni Gaudí. If Villar had stayed, the Sagrada Familia might have looked like 1,000 other churches. Instead, with Gaudí, it became something alien, organic, alive. Gaudí looked at stone and didn't see walls. He saw trees, mountains, caves. He thought architecture should grow out of the ground like nature itself. And when he got his hands on this project, he transformed Bocabella's modest Gothic church into something the world had never seen before. It's worth pausing here to mention that Gaudí wasn't just talented, he was intense, almost obsessive. Once he took over in 1883, he dedicated the rest of his life, over 40 years, to the project. By the end, he was so devoted he moved into a little workshop inside the construction site. The Sagrada Familia wasn't just his job, it was his life, his prayer, his obsession. But here's the tragic twist. When Gaudí died in 1926 after being hit by a tram, less than a quarter of the building was done. He was buried inside the church, like a king entombed in his own palace. Step inside today and you'll understand why Gaudí was called God's architect. The interior doesn't look like a traditional church. No flat ceilings, no plain walls. Instead, it feels like you've stepped into a stone forest. Towering columns rise up like tree trunks, splitting into branches that hold a canopy of stone high above. Sunlight filters through stained glass windows, casting greens, blues, and reds across the floor, as if you're walking in a magical woodland. Gaudí once said, "Nothing is art if it does not come from nature." And you can see that philosophy in every curve, every surface. The geometry isn't random, it's inspired by shells, bones, plants. The building is full of little secrets. A turtle carved at the base of one column, a chameleon tucked away on another. He wanted people to look closely, to discover surprises hidden in the details. Then there were the facades. Think of them like giant stone storybooks. The Nativity facade, built while Gaudí was alive, overflows with life. Flowers, birds, angels, and the joyful scenes of Jesus' birth. It's almost chaotic, bursting with detail like nature itself. The Passion facade, started decades later, is the opposite: harsh, angular, almost brutal. It shows Jesus' suffering and crucifixion with stark, stripped-down figures that look like they're carved out of bones. The Glory facade, still being built today, will represent heaven, salvation, and eternal life. Each side tells a story, not with words, but with stone. And this is what makes people debate. Is it a church? Or is it really one enormous sculpture? When you're standing there, surrounded by these towering forms, it feels like both. Here's a fun fact. The Sagrada Familia isn't just famous, it's the world's largest unfinished church. Yes, after 140 years, it's still technically a work in progress. But don't mistake unfinished for unimpressive. In 2010, even while cranes and scaffolding filled the skyline, Pope Benedict XVI consecrated it as a basilica. That means it's officially a holy place of worship. At the same time, UNESCO recognizes parts of it as a World Heritage Site for its artistic value. So it's literally both a sacred church and a work of art. Critics have always had mixed opinions though. Back in the early 1900s, some thought Gaudí had gone mad. His designs were too strange, too daring. Famous writer George Orwell once called it one of the most hideous buildings in the world. Can you imagine? And yet today, millions of visitors would strongly disagree. The debate continues. Is it a masterpiece of genius or just a bizarre obsession? Maybe it's both, because Gaudí wasn't trying to fit into categories. He wanted to create something no one had ever seen, a church that felt alive, breathing, growing, like a prayer made of stone. Now, let's talk about the elephant, or should I say crane, in the room. Why on earth is it still unfinished? Part of it comes down to money. From the very start, the Sagrada Familia was funded not by kings or governments, but by private donations. Every brick, every piece of stone came from someone's pocket. That meant progress was slow and always depended on how generous people felt. Then came disaster. In 1936, during the Spanish Civil War, anarchists stormed the site. They destroyed parts of the basilica, burned Gaudí's workshop, and smashed many of his original plans and models. It took 16 years for later architects to painstakingly reconstruct his vision from fragments and old photographs. Imagine trying to finish a puzzle when someone had set fire to half the pieces. After World War II, work resumed, but slowly, with hand tools and traditional carving. Then in the 1980s and 1990s, technology changed everything. Computers, laser scanners, and 3D printing helped architects interpret Gaudí's complex organic shapes. Suddenly, progress sped up. Today, construction is mostly funded by ticket sales. Those millions of tourists who flock every year are actually paying to finish the project. The plan is to complete it by 2026, exactly 100 years after Gaudí's death. That means the central spire of Jesus, reaching 172.5 meters tall, will finally be finished, making it the tallest church in the world. But some experts say 2030 or even 2034 is more realistic. Either way, it's astonishing. A building that has outlived generations of workers, wars, and political changes, still rising stone by stone. So, what is the Sagrada Familia really? A church? A sculpture? Or an obsession? Well, it's all three. It's a church consecrated and alive with prayer, where services are held under its kaleidoscope ceiling of light. It's a sculpture covered in carvings that tell stories of faith, nature, and life itself. And yes, it was Gaudí's obsession. He once said, "My ideas are of an indefinite character. They will be carried out by others." He knew he wouldn't live to see it finished, but he believed others would pick up where he left off. And they did. Today, the Sagrada Familia is the symbol of Barcelona. 5 generations have watched it grow. Children who once saw it surrounded by scaffolding are now grandparents, still waiting for those final towers. And somehow, that ongoing process is part of the magic. Because the truth is, the Sagrada Familia teaches us patience. It reminds us that some dreams take more than a lifetime. It shows how faith, art, and community can carry an idea forward across centuries. So, whether you call it a church, a sculpture, or an obsession, one thing is certain: it's unforgettable. And when it's finally complete, the Sagrada Familia will stand not just as a monument to Gaudí's genius, but as proof that even the wildest dreams can come true if you're willing to wait.